Hello, everybody. Today's sessions will be about project discovery and documentation. So the agenda for today is first, we'll talk about project discovery. We'll see a brief introduction about what is our process mining solution. Then we will move to how do we document our processes using project discovery, just to close on a demo on process documentation using project discovery. So Project Discover is a SaaS service for process mining on TIBCO Cloud, which allows us to learn from the operational data to gain transparency and objectivity about your processes. What is that operational data? That operational data is any observable event that you might think of that you have in your company. There are events across your company, and you might not even aware of those. Those events could be stored on different kind of sources, such as databases, logs, applications, cloud or on-prem application, or even IoT devices. So with all that operational data, we are able to discover on your process, document your process, check the compliance, and even do the automation on some part of your processes, as we will see later. Most companies are going through a digital transformation, and for us, it should start with a process mining phase, where first we will discover, in the first phase, we will discover just to get transparency and learning from your data that allowed us, for example, to check for conformity, identify bottleneck, check resource usage, and discover on the processes. Once that is done, we'll be able to document our processes, just for example, to define the process, transform, collaborate across teams, reduce the risk of not compliance, improve new employees' time to productivity, optimize business efficiency, or improve alignment and collaboration across teams or even departments. Finally, we are able to predict, improve, and automate searching for or predicting over your in-flight cases for future outcomes, such as meeting your SLAs or automation opportunity on your processes. How that process, this project discover works? It works in a two-phase approaches, where first we will do the data preparation, as you can see on the left of your screen, where we identify a key business process and identify the business questions that we want to get answers for. It's like, for example, are the company SLAs meeting? Are we compliant with the rules that we have? Are all the execution following the path that we have defined at corporate level, and so on. In order to do that, we bring the data that could come in different formats, for example, CSV or Excel files, just to act in a self-service mode, or we can connect to your systems using a TIBCO data virtualization view that has more than 200 connectors. So with that data that is already prepared, we move to the second phase, where we do the data process exploration and analysis. How do we do that? First, we have to do the data mapping to the key process mining attributes. What are those key process mining attributes? The activity, some days when the activity has started and has finished, who has executed or performed the activity, which department the activity or the request comes from, for example, or any other kind of information that you might think of that could be relevant to the process. Once that mapping is done, we will execute a process mining algorithm against the data. And once it's complete, we can explore the process in a very interactive way to identify and try to get the answers to all the business questions that we have defined in the first phase, in the data preparation phase. We can quantify the bottlenecks, check for the performance. We can even identify variants that we have. The variants are the different paths that we have in our process from the beginning to the end. And finally, we can define a main variant for checking compliance later. Once we do that, we can use the case management built-in functionality that we have in order to resolve improvement requests or compliance cases. So the process mining solution, this is the architecture where we have the data provisioning layer, where we have two different kinds of data that we use. So we define data at rest that could come from CSV files or could come from your operational systems that, as we mentioned before, using TIBCO data virtualization, we can connect to those operational systems. We also support data in motion. That means that the data is coming and is being generated by the application. And for that, we support different technologies such as Kafka, Pulsar, EFTL, or MQTT. So with that data, so on top we have the Project Discover solution where we are using different components that we have into the TIBCO Cloud platform, such as Spotfire, Nimbus, Live Apps, integrations, or the messaging capabilities. So as today's topics is about documentation, we will start talking about how we document our processes using Project Discover. So once we have identified the different variants in Process Discover, we are able to generate a TIBCO Nimbus map from the variants that are more relevant for the process. And later we can use it as a reference model for the compliance phase. Also, TIBCO Nimbus allows us to communicate and collaborate across teams in the process definitions. Let me explain you something that happens to me last weekend when I was meeting with some friends for having lunch, and one of them came to me and said, "Look, we have a problem in your company where we have no process documentation, and when I go to the IT team and mention that, look, I need to document these processes in order to improve them and understanding how they work, identify bottlenecks and so on." So the guys from IT told my friend, "Look, we are 100% busy with current project that we have, so we have no time for documenting those processes. Even we document your processes, or even we run the project that we have today." So that's. So I was talking with this friend over the weekend. I said, "Look, we have a solution for that is perfect, that will allow us, based on your system and just in a matter of minutes, just to have and understand how your processes are working and identify processes or problems that you might have in your processes." So now we will jump to a demo. In the demo, we will initially see a process mining analysis where we will move through the different variants. Later, we will create a process map with the selected variants, and we will move to TIBCO Nimbus in order to collaborate on the model, on the process that we have created. We will define this process map as a reference model in order to check for compliance in the last part of the demo. Let me jump to the demo. So this is the Project Discover, where we have the different analysis we have here. Let me just open, for example, the money request analysis. Okay, here we have the money request analysis where we have almost 72,000 events. That is almost 5,000 cases that the instance that we have for money requests. So we have received almost 5,000 money requests in the period that we have here, where we have 49 variants. Those are the different paths that we have with a median of 110 days. And in the process, we have 16 different activities. So if we go to the variant, just to see the variants, as we saw, we have 49 variants. We might select any variants, and we will see here a representation of the variant that we have selected. So this one here on the left, this is a tree map where the size of the box that we have represents the number of currencies that we have for that variant. In this case, we have for the first variant, that is the one that we have selected, we have 20.69% of cases belong to this variant. So we might go to number 3, that is 460 cases, that means almost 9%. So we can also select a group of variants, for example, let's say that 1, 2, 3, 6, and 7. are the variants that we are interested in order to define the documentation. And we see here on the left, sorry, on the right, we have different colors. We can see the loops where the activity has started. So the colors means how long it is taking. The darker the red is, the more time the activity takes. The bigger, the thicker the line is, and is more a number of cases go through these brands, and the darker is the same as well, the duration for those transitions here as well. Okay. Let's create the document for this variant that we have selected here. So from here, we can just click here to create a process documentation. And this will bring us a new dialog where we select the folder where we want to create this document. And let's call it money request 2022. So then we click here and then we create the documentation. The process has been created in TIBCO Nimbus. We can jump to TIBCO Nimbus here and we see the diagram that we have. Here is executing correctly here. So the colors, the same color that we have with the same meaning that we have defined into the discover, we have it here. And from here, we can start collaborating across the team. We can check it and we can, for example, edit the diagram and we say, okay, let's say first activity or second level acceptance, assignment to the instructor. This, let's say that this is not assignment to the instructor, because it might be different people that are executed, and let's call it just, for example, assignment. So we are editing the process here, and with that one, we can just say that we are done. So we have modified the process. We see that here is completed. We can change the activity order, transition that we have, or any other kind of information that you might think of. So let's go back now to Project Discover and close this one. As we mentioned before, we are also able to check for compliance. So we have the compliance that we have here defined, and I could change the compliance, for example, instead of being the one that we have, just to be the one that we have selected. That one, it will reevaluate the compliance that we have. So and we have the different color with different meanings. For example, we see the blue that we have here, these three boxes that we have here, and the fourth one on the left. That means that the elements are only in the reference model. That means that in this variant that I have selected, 7, 3, 6 are not there present, but are only on the model. Okay, the green ones are the ones that are defined in the reference model and in the group of variants that I have selected, and the red is the one that are only in the variants, but for example are not in the reference model. Okay, so you see I have checked different. I have selected a different group of activities. Here I have one that is not in the reference model, and we might have a compliance problem here. Okay. So that's for the demo. Let me just do a brief recap on the demo. So we have opened the money request analysis where we have moved and select a group of variants. We have identified the different variants that are more relevant to the process that we have. And we have created, we have documented the process, and we have collaborated a little bit. We did a small change with the name, for example, on the activity, as you remember. And then we have defined that process that we created as a reference model, and we check then the compliance against the reference model. That was for today's demo. Finally, I would like to invite you to the next webinar that we have for the series that we are doing on Project Discover, where my colleague will talk to you about real-time data provisioning and process mining on July 14th. Okay. With that, the floor is open for any question that you might have.